Yo, what's good, y'all? I'm back. I got another video for you guys. I'm going to be doing an in-depth tutorial on how I use Logic Pro. So for all those people who are just starting out, this is going to be pretty much like a basic run through of Logic Pro. So let's go. So I went in and I started out with this little flute sound. Started out with that. And what I usually like to do is I go in and I hit this little quantize button. And when you go in there, you can change up the timing on all of your notes. And I like to usually use this in drums. Like, you can do some crazy triplet stuff. But for right now, we're in 16th note. And when you want to time your project, you just click on here, Command A, it'll copy all of it, and you hit this little Q button and it should time your notes so you won't have to worry about it being off beat. What I like to do next is I like to mess with the velocity of these notes. It just kind of gives it a little more bounce, gives it a little more attitude to the beat and to the track. So how you could do that is you just take this knob here, you click on one note, and you can mess around with it. But for this one, I like to keep it here. I lowered this one a little bit. I'm probably gonna lower this one a little bit too. And then I made a little run down with the velocity here, and you can tell with the colors that it drops off a little bit. So we'll do this. And this is what it sounds like. Once you got your main riff timed up, got the velocity where you want it, you can come in, add something, complement it. I complemented it with a little grand piano, added some bass notes, and this is what it sounds like. So with these bass notes, I keep them a little higher just so that you can hear it a little more. But what I also like to do is go over to my EQ, and I like to drop the high end off of it. So when you're analyzing it, you just hit this little analyzer post and it should show where everything is, where the note's hitting. I'm gonna drag this. This is your high cut. You just wanna cut out the high end a little bit since this is a bass line. You come in here a little bit, drop that. Maybe you could bump this up a little bit. And that's how I would EQ my piano. And we'll go here. Since this is a little higher, I'm gonna take the low end, cut out the low end a little bit, just so that it doesn't sound so muddy. Drag this out. Do something like that. Take the high end. You can mess with this. These are all filters. Or this one and this little red one, they're essentially filters. So it kind of changes the sound a little bit, but it just takes out the high end and the low end that you don't really need in your sound. Once I added those, I went into this program on Logic Pro called Alchemy, and you can find that if you just click on the side there. It's right here, and it's gonna pop up a bunch of presets, and this is where I use pretty much all my sounds. You can come in here, you can rate them, you can do whatever you want. And the specific name of this one is this. That's what I'm using right now, and I'll show you what it sounds like. Get this out of here. It's like an arpeggio, essentially, with a little bell sound. I kept that in there as a little accent to what I had. This is what it sounds like all together. Now that I got my main melody down, what I like to do is I will go back and I'll pan these instruments. And it's really important to pan these instruments in some way so that you can hear all of them, but it's not also just playing through both ears. It just brings more character to the song. So since this is my main riff, I'm gonna leave this in the middle. but I'll probably pan this, not too much, not too crazy, probably like 16, 17. Pan that to the left, and I'll pan this to the right the same amount, so that you can just kind of hear it a little more. Just kind of clears it up a little bit. Now that I got my main melody instruments panned out where I want them to go, I came in and I added these drums here. I'll kind of show you what they sound like. I also do pan my drums as well, and I'll show you how I do that. This is what I got going. So how I would pan it, usually your snare and your kick stay at the same velocity, and they stay straight on here. But what I like to do with my hi-hat is I'll come over here. You'll have to click EQ just to register it. But you come down to tremolo, and what this does is it will bounce the hi-hat in between both speakers. So you can just kind of mess around with it. I'd probably do something like this. You can even do a triplet. The depth just makes it more dramatic. So depending on how dramatic you want it, you can just mess with this knob and how smooth you want it to roll. So I'll probably keep it like right here. And this is what it will sound like. Let me just get rid of this stuff real quick. But you can kind of hear it bouncing in between the ear, and that just gives it a little more bounce to the hi-hat and to your song. So now, next what I would do is I like to pan my perks. So I got this one down here at 31. I go a little more aggressive on these than I do on my melodies, just so it comes in through each ear a little harder instead of it being all in the middle. Just makes, like I said before, it adds more character to your song, a little more bounce. And with the hi-hat bouncing in between, you should be freaking golden, man. Once I got all my instruments panned out the way I want it, I like to come in, EQ my drums now. Mainly it's just the 808 and the kick. You can mess with the snare and stuff a little bit, and I'll do that too. But right now, this is how I have my 808. I got the high end cut out. I got a little bit of the gain coming out because it is blowing my speakers. So I got to turn that down a little bit. And what I like to also do is if you hit this little S button, it singles out that instrument. So you can really lock in and hear what's going on in each particular instrument. This is what I got going right now. Probably gonna make this one a little bigger. But it just hits more. Do that right there. And then come in, drag this out. Just makes the 808 a lot cleaner, hits a lot more. And I'll do the same thing with the kick. Now when I'm EQing my kick, what I also like to do is have the 808 playing as well, just so that I can hear, because these two go together like freaking bread and butter. So it's very important to make sure that these sound good together. So while I EQ this, that's what I usually do. And this is how I did it. Got a little spike where it kicks, took some of the high frequency out of it. And then I'm probably gonna bump this a little bit. Just makes the kick very punchy. That's how I would do it. Last but not least, what I like to do is come into this. There's this little master button on the side here. You just hit that. It's going to analyze your track. And you can mess with these knobs a little bit to get exactly what you want. They also have these little presets in here, different presets, whatever sounds good to you. But yeah, that's how I master my track. Here's the final product. And that's how I pan my music, y'all. That's the basics on how to use Logic Pro. I'll probably do another in-depth video after this as a part 2, but let me know